This conference will now
Oh,
be recorded.
okay. Oh, we could probably talk about a lot of things.
The group to develop the syllabus.
To
This
Lily a
conference
few
will
minutes
now be
ago, and we
recorded.
just want to make sure that we are covering what you guys would like us to cover today. So Lily had mentioned like an overview, and then also maybe talking specifically about grading. I know we mentioned IPAs.
Assigning, how do I sign?
And assigning was the last on the list. And of course, we want to dedicate some time in the end to, if you guys want to sit down and start that process, we can get you started with that.
Is there anything else that you want to have us go over before we start? Okay, and just ask questions.
And if they're telling you stuff you already know, interrupt and say,
Yeah.
you don't need something that they're talking about.
Yeah, we
waste
can
your
just
time.
move on.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's really easy for students to sign in.
Yeah,
So that's my issue. Every semester with the other group. Oh my
And I wanna-
gosh.
because I don't know what they need
So
to do
two
to sign
things.
up.
We're going
Mhm.
to show you how once you create a class, you can create a PDF with instructions specifically for that section.
Yes.
But I also sent to Lily earlier the grace period instructions, which walk students through registering and enrolling in a course and then redeeming their code. We can give the students 2 weeks of full access
Yeah.
while they sort out books they need, are they
Right.
in the right level class, they're waiting on financial aid, so please feel free to share those with your students. They can enroll, and so the minute you say yes to them, you accept them, that 2-week period starts. So accept them when you're going to start assigning work. So they have a full 2 weeks.
I read in those instructions that only 5% of the students enrolled can have access to the free grace period.
No. What it was saying is that research shows that only 5% of the kids
Use it.
have the code the day the class begins.
Uh-huh.
We can give you unlimited. So if you run out, and I'll show you where it is, but if you run out, you just email me and we can add more. So we give you like 150 to start with, and if you run out, then I can add. Yeah.
One question I did have that would be very helpful to us is, do you have a way to integrate with Canvas so that when they get grades here, it also gets transferred to Canvas?
The gradebook we cannot integrate. So we do the single sign-on integration with Canvas.
We do,
But
they can sign in
Yep.
through
They can
Canvas.
sign into Canvas and then go straight to VHL, so that's helpful.
That's not.
And I don't think anyone's asking for the secret key that you need for Canvas, but I can get that for you.
Because I can talk to the Canvas people,
Yeah.
but they
Yes.
need something.
Right,
Right.
they'll get that from me, and then they can make it an icon that you can choose. So that's very helpful. But we, for privacy reasons, do not share gradebook information at this point. It's something we're exploring, but it's a concern we have with sharing data that we have with a third party.
Right. So work with a McGraw book that you can.
Yep.
direct.
Mhm.
Yep. And at this point, it's not something that we. Yeah,
So-
and that may change, but the most recent news is that we're not ready to make that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go on, I just wanted you to let them know that you taught using this system.
I have,
Right?
yes, for many years. So I actually have taught with Viva and with Vistas and also with Suena. So I am definitely used to the super site at this point, and it's so user friendly in the first place. I think in the beginning it was just really easy to get the basics down, and just after using it for so many years, now I know lots of little tips and other things that I hopefully can share with you guys today. So that'll make everything just a bit easier. Someone mentioned a minute ago, you were talking about your students and if they could sign in easily. So I have my course. I've asked my students permission to share this with you all today, and they're so kind. They did not mind at all. So it'll be really easy for me to show you some of these things since we already have some data here. But just to answer that question, once we set up your courses today, all you do is go down under the section and instructions for students. And so some instructors feel more comfortable kind of copying and pasting that into the learning management system. You all use Canvas here. And then there's also a link. I just post the link, right? We use Moodle. So I just post the link on there and they click on it and it gives them all the information they
Click on
need.
it just to make it
Yeah, so this is so you can either use this link. So I just copy this link and put it right on Moodle, or some some instructors feel more comfortable just like copying this and putting it into a Word document and posting it. So I think that's kind of an extra step, but whatever you feel more comfortable with.
But
So
you can copy it and take it into your syllabus, so it's right there.
yeah, that's another thing that you can do. So
You could do both.
Yeah.
You could put the link on your page and your LMS, and
That's
then you
right.
could put these in there in your syllabus for any student.
yeah. So new students and returning students. So we use VSTUS in 101, 102, and 103. And so we tell them if they are, when they move on, they don't need to repurchase anything. And so that's why it's important to post all
They have
of
to
this.
repurchase. They don't have to create a new account.
Exactly.
They use
Yeah,
the
they
same
don't have
account.
to, right. They don't have to buy anything new there. So, yeah. So I don't usually get any questions about it. So that's a good thing. So something must be working there for sure. Okay. So would you all like to start off with an overview of the system and how it works? Okay. So let me go back here. Okay, and we have my course set up already with Suena. I used Suena for the very first time this summer, this specific textbook for a 4th level Spanish class. And so that is a capstone course for us. So we did some review with the present and then the preterite imperfect, and then the rest of the class we spent on the subjunctive, present and past subjunctive. And then there's little grammar points in between that we kind of reviewed too. Okay, so here, this courses category is basically, this is what we're going to focus on at the end. So this is where we create the course and then the sections also. So maybe at the very end, if you guys want to start with your courses, you guys can, get set up at the computers and we can go through that part. Okay, then the content here. Okay, so we'll go through this section. So our first section here is activities. Okay, so this is basically just everything that we see in the textbook here. I actually don't click on this one too often because it's all there in the textbook. And of course, once you start assigning, you'll see those due dates set up. So that's not one of the main ones that I click on typically.
Is it where you go to do the assignments?
No, so we'll go over to the assignment calendar here. Yes.
Just a point, you can do it from here.
You
too.
can.
Yeah.
I use.
You always go there. Okay.
And that's how I've done it, but it's only because I don't know all the things
It's
you can do.
personal preference.
Yes.
Some people are linear, they like to see the whole thing laid
Right.
out.
I've always
And be
done
able
that
to
because
click
that's
on
how I know how to
assignments.
do
Ah,
it.
so I'll show you the other way too. Okay,
But you
that's
can
good.
by clicking on one of those activities.
Right.
And then it'll
And assigning over here.
And you can open it and see what they
Right, that way you can see the activity.
That's important
At first
too.
is the way to do it because you can see that.
Yes. As far as assigning activities, just out of curiosity, do you all have a list that's already set up, like for a textbook you've used before even, or you have to assign a certain amount every semester? Everybody kind of picks and chooses? Okay, so you all will kind of go through all of these activities and pick and choose. That's good. Okay, well, there are many types of activities you can pick from.
We can probably decide together some of the things we want to
Yeah, if you
do.
think everyone should do
Oh,
something,
yeah.
everybody should.
Are we going to be using the list of grammar topics that we?
I'm sure whatever you guys have developed needs to come into play.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because just because I don't know that everybody has that list.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all sent it out, right?
We sent it out to the group of people who were going to be working on something.
Mm-hmm.
So I can send it out.
Yeah.
It's such as that.
Yeah, I'll send it out to everybody.
Group
Sorry.
work to save time, yes. No, that's fine. Okay, let's see. Down here, assessment. So I use this one pretty often. So once you click on this, you can decide what lesson you want to get into, and there are lots of options for you here. So if we were looking at, I'll just pick a lesson here, lesson 2. So I see I've assigned a vocab quiz for my students. So you can choose between the vocab quizzes, the grammar quizzes, the lesson tests are a little bit of everything from that chapter, and then there are oral testing suggestions. My favorite part about this is that you can modify. So if you go in, you want to give your students a vocab quiz, and you don't like number 2, right? So I think I must have modified this one here. So if I go in here and I say, you know, I don't really love this number 2, or I don't really like this whole section at all, or I feel like I want to add something extra to the instructions for more clarity for my students. I can do all of that. So what I would do here, so this is what I would see if I had not modified it already. I would click here and it would say create copy to customize. Okay. And then I would click on it to edit here. Pencil. And then I can play with it. So I can add to the instructions. I can add a whole section here if I want to. So basically, I can modify this as I please. Okay.
And a new feature coming September 1st is that you can also choose to randomize the
Yeah.
questions. So if you are worried about,
So each person gets this.
Right.
I think it's each person gets excited.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you can also play with the points here. If it's easier, if you want to make it out of 100 or something like that, all your quizzes, you know, are worth the same amount. You can also do that. So I have used this feature pretty often. Okay. Now, do you give quizzes online, or do you do them in the classroom, or how do you normally in the class? Yeah, we do that too.
So we do have those same topics in the resources tab for you to print out or download.
Oh yeah.
They're not identical, so you could actually assign one as a practice and then download the
Yeah.
paper one and do it in class. And it's editable, so if you want to try
Right.
that, and that's under resources.
And I believe also under resources, the correct answers to these quizzes are there. So if you are having one of those days where your brain, you don't want to push your brain for one more second, I think they have all the correct answers too. Okay. So that is the assessment section. So we'll go here now over to my content. Yes. So here we have also a list of everything, and you can see also the things that I've modified and put in here. So this is basically everything that you can possibly assign, right? In addition to whatever you have
It's anything
created.
customized,
Yes.
or if you've added, so you could add a video to my content.
Yes.
And add questions to it because it's something that's relevant to what you're talking about in class. And that would show up in here and it
Right.
would move with you every time that you teach it. That
Mhm.
content moves with you.
This is like your library, basically. Okay. All right.
We can show you in a moment how to add mine.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so down here, resources. So this is where we're going to find our IPAs. So here, okay, and I'll tell you the things that I have found very useful, and you can kind of play with it too once you create your course. The activity pack to me is amazing. Charlotte has given us a copy. I think I have a binder in everyone's office, so one copy in each office. So we might have 4 copies or so. And so on those days that, you know, you are feeling like your students need a really communicative activity or just a task-based activity or whatever it is you think that class needs that day, there are tons of activities in here that you won't find in the textbook. So you can use those here. So I'm kind of just flipping through some of these. So we have some task-based activities. I think there's some reading selections. The info gaps are my favorite. So at the end of class, I want my students, I don't know about you, or maybe you feel the same way, you want them talking after, you know, they've kind of, yeah, that's what we want. So those info gap activities are my favorite. I put them in groups of 2 or 3. They, you know, are pretty much practicing the grammar and vocabulary that we're using at the time, and they're happy and awake because they're moving, right? So, all right, so we have a whole list. So here is an encuesta. So for example, that would be an interactive activity that you could use for this one. Okay, I think I used some of these in my online class also. They were very useful. Yes. Okay, let's see. So we have some audio scripts here. Grammar slides, I have downloaded these and just put them on my Moodle page at the beginning of the semester. So in addition to any PowerPoints that I have created, I have these at the beginning of the semester so they know before coming to class, they can read the textbook, and they can also watch the grammar tutorial videos that we'll talk about assigning, and then the PowerPoints are here too. So they have all of that ahead of time so that they can prepare for class.
You can make them available to students too by clicking the little button on the right-hand column.
Mhm,
So
over
if you wanted
here.
students to be able to see that from their login. you can
Right,
click it.
just make it available. And actually, I don't know if this feature was available when I first started, so that's something good for me to know. Yeah, in the future, I can start just
So
doing
any of the
that.
resources except for quizzes and tests
Yeah.
can be shareable.
Yes. Okay.
It appears on their homepage for them.
It'll be the same drop down. It'll say resources, and they can go there and they'll see it there.
Right over
And you
there.
can add resources too. So if you had a PowerPoint that you wanted to add to, you could click add resources and upload that.
Okay. So we have the lab audios here. Would you all use something like that? I haven't used these too much before. Maybe initially when we're creating assessments and tests, we might pull something from there and then we modify. And so we work together as a team to create tests, the full exams that we have throughout the semester. And so I know when we first switched over to VSTUS, we weren't really sure where to start. So I think we started with some of these scripts. We read them aloud at the beginning of class. Students do the listening section. So that's what we have used those for.
And these are the readings and an activity, or just
You can click on one.
Yeah, so we can click here. Let's go to how to input that. Setting
So
things up. Okay.
there are activities that relate to it in the superset as well, but these are available for you if you wanted to download them or you had a student with accommodations and they needed to have access to the audio. So these are supplemental resources. Anything that's listening activity for the lab manual is already in the supersite. It's housed there with links. This is just an additional resource.
Did that work that way?
Yeah, maybe some the volume needs to be turned on, because I see it looks like it's all set up here. Nothing to show, but something's moving here. This one, you mean?
maybe on the remote too.
Oh, we didn't plug in anything to your audio.
Oh,
That could be
There you
it.
that'll
go.
do.
And maybe you have it on mute.
I have it all good here and here, so it must be something
Your
over.
computer should be saying something.
Yeah. Let's try clicking on another one too, just to see.
Many inputs.
Yeah. I know some instructors prefer for a test, they prefer to play these in class, but others are not so comfortable. For example, if the technology were to break down that day, they might not,
Or bad Wi-Fi in the class.
Yeah,
So these
so
are
things can
downloadable.
happen. So most of us use the scripts and read off of them in class ourselves. So, but you can always play the audio here too. And it'll expose them to different kind of, dialects and things. So that's the pro of it. Yeah.
This stuff was very good,
Yeah.
If it's for an intellectual thing, I would play them.
Mhm. Yeah. Right. Right.
Well,
So they don't have to have
that
it.
leads
They don't have to
into,
have it feeling different.
right, but that leads into the need for us to give them strategies and train them to not freak out when they're hearing.
Right.
little
That's
by
right.
little, to understand the strategies of not having to know every word that you hear and stuff like that.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, but when
I'm
it's
talking about
something,
for like a quiz.
but it's
Yeah.
when it's a test or something, it's already something done that you cannot manipulate the speed or anything. It's hard and you don't want them to fail, you know.
Yeah, but little by little, we need to build them up to that. Or what's
Yeah. I think if we go to assign an audio activity, like a listening comprehension activity, I think that the students can play it over and over. So even if the speed might be a little fast for them, I think that they can play it as many times as they want.
And there are pre-listening activities too that should help.
Yes.
set them up.
Yes, exactly.
That's something I'm sure we all do. We're just
Yeah. Yeah. And we give our students 3 attempts on the homework activities. So they can listen to it over and over and they have 3 attempts. So at the end, they're usually good with it. Okay, task-based activities. This is the place where you would find those IPAs basically. So let's click on that. I know Renee, you seemed very interested in that earlier.
A bunch of them from scratch, it'd be so much easier to-
There's
Yeah.
one per lesson.
Yes.
So you'll find one IPA per lesson.
Task-based.
And each lesson has this link for
Yep.
task-based
Yep.
activity.
In the resources.
Yes. So within this,
So it doesn't say IPA, but if you look at it, it's
Right.
an IPA.
right. Yeah. The interpretive, the interpersonal, the presentational. Exactly. So,
Does this look like what we need to be doing with ours? This is much cleaner.
So
Yeah.
it
Oh, yeah,
recovers two
Helen
things
did.
in the textbook, right? So the listening activity,
Uh-huh.
pre-reading, and the reading.
yes.
So yeah, it says you listen to a radio program, but that's somewhere in the textbook. I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Read poem 2.2, whatever, poem 25. Okay, maybe that. That's in the textbook with the pre-reading presentation and the reading and whole
post
business, so you
activities,
can use
yeah.
that as part of the IPA, and it's right there in the textbook.
Yeah. Yes. We were talking about this earlier too. You know, sometimes when we, first get into these programs, we see, oh my goodness, there's so much. But I don't know about you all, but I think more is better than less. Having to create your own activities all the time, that's very time consuming. So here you can pick and choose. It's all here for you though. Okay.
And we can, if we plan to use these, we can adjust them or change them.
The problem is the cultural.
Yeah.
We're looking for cultural comparisons, so we have to build that in.
Yeah, you
But
can
it's so
build in
much
some
easier to
things.
start from something.
Yes, that's right.
It would depend on the text too, because some of the text that they have would be really good for cultural
Oh,
comparisons.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, so there's our task-based activities, teaching suggestions.
What is that?
Yes, let's look. I think I have clicked on this a couple of times before. So this is kind of, where to start when you're doing a lesson plan and, maybe you're not sure about where to start with this. This is basically ideas for a lesson plan.
I mean, there's stuff on the side. So
Yeah.
This is a much more comprehensive, like, if
Right.
you're going to teach from point A to point B, here's the whole.
Lesson 1, and it's got a project.
Yes. Yeah, I think I've used this a few times just for ideas. But I know on like culture days, we all, have different experiences and want to talk about different things. Probably in, each classroom, it's a little bit different. So this is a good place to get ideas though.
Question,
So we give our what's in other places.
Okay. Answer keys, we talked about that before. So here's all your answer keys, quizzes, tests, all of that. And we'll look at all of those in here. Let's see. More audio scripts. Okay. The video scripts. Are you all thinking of using this cortometraje?
Yeah.
Okay. So those translations are all there. When we go to the course setup too, you all can decide, like as far as subtitles go, if you want to show your students the subtitles in Spanish or in English or both, we'll have the option for that, but the scripts are right over here. Yeah. Okay, so lots of scripts here. The overview, I think we had clicked on that earlier too for the IPAs, or was that the first one that we clicked on? Yes. That's our nice, pretty list here. Yes. Okay. All right. Let's go back over this way. Okay. So many resources. I love it.
Also, you have classroom games, separado classroom games. And
Yes.
Can I see one?
Of course.
I love the games.
The students love a competition, right? Nothing motivates them like that.
If it's a game, it's not work, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, let's see. Games for vocabulary. A la pizarra. Okay. Whole class. Looks like Pictionary, basically. I think that's what it's telling us. Yeah.
I know.
Cráneo. Oh, wow. And I'm sure they're providing us with all of these little pieces of paper they're talking about, too. Yeah, there they are. So you can cut them there. I think the students love these kinds of activities. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, everything here. How far does this go, Charlotte?
I know. Games and stuff.
You're discovering
It's
stuff.
amazing. I know. I'm loving this. Okay. Yeah, it just goes on. How many pages? I'd just like to know it. 33. Wow. Okay. Oh, it's present perfect down here and everything. Okay. All right, so let's go back up this way. So we've gone through, I think, most of the resources, lesson plan and syllabus. So Renee, you said you were coordinating some of the classes already. I don't know if you,
Coordinating some of the work within the
some of the
classes.
work within. Okay.
Yeah, as of yet, not very coordinated
Well, we just got this, and people have been away from the summer, and one group met earlier in the summer and decided a bunch of stuff, and then your group has been meeting now. So it's on the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So you were talking, if you want to add a video or something like that, and I love videos, so that's where you use the add resource.
That's one place to do it, but there's actually a better place to do it if you go into, do you know how to do that in
If
activities?
you're gonna do
Let's
it later, that's
see.
okay. I just saw it there and I said, ooh, that.
Let's pop over there.
To the activities.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're, if you were to assign here or look at it here, if you do that right there, add new activity,
Yeah.
and you need a YouTube link, so you could do video, and then it has to be YouTube.
Yes,
That will work. Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. You can find almost anything on YouTube.
You can. You really
You
can.
can put it up yourself. YouTube.
Yeah, well, that's another.
Yes.
That's an option is to just upload it to YouTube. I do that.
I know. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you can do compositions there. You can do virtual chats, partner chats, and videos.
Mhm.
You know, and then that stays with your login as you go forward.
That's right. Okay, let's
Even
see.
from edition to edition, that's a new feature.
Okay, vocabulary tools. So this would be great. Let's see, maybe I didn't. Yep. So I don't know if you all have seen too much of this. I feel like when we have a day that we're focusing, mainly on vocab, the students come in and they say, well, I just didn't know how to say the word. And they feel a little anxious and then they don't want to participate. Exactly. That's exactly right. Yes. And so there's a way to assign this on the assignment calendar. So that's something I do in the beginning. So by the time they come to class, they've had an opportunity to kind of click through the words, listen to what it sounds like. And if you all feel like you want to add on some related vocabulary words for them to study, you can do that right here also. Yes. Okay.
How did they listen to it?
Oh, show her the flashcards.
Oh, yeah. So they should be able to hear the pronunciation with the flashcards.
But we don't have that.
Yes, but that's where it would say el ánimo. The list here. Yeah. And that when we go to assign activities, I'll show you where you can actually assign this for them. Yeah, and they can, click on it and it's like, you can do it for completion. It doesn't have to count for a grade, but it's there for them to practice with. If they want to look at one card or all the flashcards, then they can do that. So, okay. And then we have the V-text. So, I know a lot of our students, do students use laptops in the classrooms here? Or no, we don't do that either at Loyola. So some of them have told me they appreciate this so they don't have to carry their book around all the time. And so like if they go home for Thanksgiving and they don't want to carry that book with them that they have to bring to class every day, they can just click here on the V-text. And here they have access to everything. That's right. You can assign. It brings them right to the page. That's exactly right.
Yeah, so they can get to it from either here, clicking on those colored numbers,
Right.
or from
So right
the
over
super
here.
site, if they click on the activity, it takes them to books.
Exactly. And then there's your vocab tools kind of all over again. And it'll take them right there if they want to go back and practice that as they go through the activities. Okay. All right. So that's actually the lengthiest section on here. So we've gone through most of it here, and I know this is a very important part. So we can look at my grade book here and also my assignment calendar just to give you guys an idea of what that might look like when you start assigning. Okay, so once I have assigned my activities, I can click on my assignment calendar here and it shows when everything is due. So I had my quizzes for this online course. I had my quizzes due always on Fridays. And if I go here, back to July, I actually had some practice quizzes that I set up for them to help them prepare for the other quiz on Friday. So when they look at the calendar, this is what they will see. You'll also notice, and if you don't like this feature, you can take it off. It'll be up to you. But it'll give them like an estimate of how long they're going to spend on that. My students have told me they don't spend this amount of time. If it says 10 minutes, maybe they're spending 7 minutes on it. So I think it's an overestimated time, which is good.
Well, it's a national average, so you have the slow and the
Uh-huh.
That 6 hours is an overestimate.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, we spent like 4.5. That's for the entire
That's a
week.
whole
I'm
week.
not doing that.
Yeah. This is a 5-week class, so.
That's why some teachers hide that,
Yeah.
because they just don't want the
Scary.
student to know how long it's going to take.
Yes.
Do
Yeah.
the students receive that same calendar, like they throw something there?
Yes, they will see assignments in 2 different places, and I'll show you when we go to sign up, when we go to create your courses, I'll show you how to kind of create a sample student so you can see exactly what they see. They'll be able to see these in 2 different places, though. I think most of them prefer to look at the calendar. That's what they've told me. So I think this is kind of what they prefer to see. You'll also see that I have different categories. When we talk about the grade book, I can show you, if you want quizzes, and this doesn't have to be in line with your LMS either, right? That can be like your syllabus can say this is worth 10%, but on here maybe it's 5%. It's however you want to set it up. But I like to do mine in certain categories. So the reading selection activities, we're actually counting for their own grade on the syllabus. So that's why I have a separate category. Another category that I know a lot of instructors like is like just extra practice category. So if you don't want to assign 6 hours, worth of homework for them, but you know that they need extra practice and you want it to be optional and not count for a grade, you can set up a category just for that. So they'll have that if they need it. Okay, so that's what it would look like afterwards. And we can go through this a little bit more in depth, I think, when we start maybe the course creation too. But here you have a list of all the activities that you can assign. And I think maybe some of them are not in here because they're already assigned. So there's probably more activities than what we see here. The important things to know about this are, the first is that if there are numbers here, that means it's not in the textbook. So these are the textbook activities that we see kind of in the beginning, and then we go into the extra activities that are not in the textbook that you can assign. There are also different types of activities to assign. So you'll see all these little icons here. So this one, of course, comes from the textbook, but if we go down.
Some of the main instructor input, right?
Yeah.
The apple means you have to, the
instructor has to grade. So it's always important to mention here to not bite off more than you can chew with the apple, right? So we have that, yes. And then we have, if the students are recording something, that's here. And so, and then you have all the different divisions. So vocabulary at the beginning, the cortometraje, right? And then we have another culture section, it looks like, the flash cultura, and then it goes into grammar and all the way down. Again, textbook activities and then activities that are not in the textbook.
Yeah, and aren't in the textbook.
It's actually
If it has a mouse next to
The
it,
mouse.
that's what's in the textbook.
Ah, okay. Well, my students are probably like, what are you doing, Fifi?
It's just a list of how many activities are under that category.
Yeah.
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 So and they do happen in this case not to be in the textbook.
Right.
So maybe that's often the case, but
Yeah,
it's
that's
the
what I
mouse
see.
that indicates if it's in the textbook or not.
Okay.
And then in the textbook it's the other way around. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out was the little 2 figures that
Yes.
are colored in like that. That's
The
a
partner chats.
So you can assign them to do conversations out of the classroom, especially snow days or flood. Didn't you guys have a flood last fall?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And floods. It was a horrible year last, if I remember, fall semester was awful. So those are great ways to give kids opportunities to talk to each other outside of the classroom.
That's right.
And then if you have an icon that's shaded in just one of them, That's a virtual chat. So they're going to speak with an authentic Spanish speaker who poses questions, and they will record their answer, just an audio recording for you to listen to.
Sorry to bother so much. But the partner chat,
Yes.
they have to be all together like in a language lab. That's what I used to do. Or can, how is it assigned?
So you can assign it on here. They have to be just online at the same time, but from any location.
You know,
With one
like
other
you
person.
guys are
Yes.
the partners and you're gonna coordinate when you guys are gonna be online and you do it. Okay.
That's exactly right.
And it videos them both.
Mhm.
So that you
Nice.
especially in the beginning, I would recommend that you have students identify themselves because it's just two people talking. You don't always know automatically who's who. So train your students to introduce themselves.
Right.
But I had one professor who's like, why, how could, there's got to be a better way to identify them. And I think they're working on a way to do that, but in the meantime.
Yeah.
Put a little
Back there.
Exactly.
Put your name, yeah.
little tag on.
They can all make themselves a little nameplate.
Yeah.
I know.
Then all weird names.
And then we talked about how to assign the vocabulary and flashcards. That's always at the very bottom. So that's where you would find that. Okay. All right. Now, let's say you know that you only want to assign auto-graded for a certain portion. So you can filter all of that out here. So here we have just lesson 1, and then I can go here to properties. And so I can choose like what content or what activity type. And also instructor graded, auto graded, or mixed. So after I assign the tutorial videos to watch, I usually then go to auto graded, and then right after that I go to instructor graded and I add specific ones in, like so many per lesson. So that is something you can use. And that's that. Okay, and then the grade book. Yes. Okay. All right. So my students were so lovely to give me permission to share this with you all. They were like, the class is pretty much over. We don't care, profe. So they are lovely.
Oh yeah, James has totally been out.
Yeah, we've seen James.
Yeah. Yeah, James kind of slacked off there, and pretty much. Yeah, he started off strong. Yeah. So here, after the students.
He went to the beach.
Yeah, he had
Actually, he did go to the beach. He told me that he went to the beach.
You like kind of down or thing and
Yeah,
then realized it was.
Yeah.
When he got to lesson 4 and he was 28, it's like, okay,
You gotta pass this class.
James, yeah.
Is the 61 passing at Loyola?
C. They have to get a C. Yeah. He might need to, yes. So here we have, you can go by lesson or you can go by due date, whatever you prefer. So however you're putting it into Canvas and however you're setting it up there, you can kind of adjust. Here you can choose the lesson and then the category. So these were my categories that I set up in the beginning when I set up the course and my grade book. So I had the reading selections. I wanted to make sure those counted for a higher percentage. I'll show you, how I kind of set up my grade book too. And then we had the practice quizzes. I didn't want them to count at all. So I put them in a separate category. The quizzes I wanted to count, and the homework also I wanted to count. And I think in my grade book, I might have just done 25, 25. I might have done that for every one of them. In the end, when I transfer the grade to Moodle, or you all would do it with Canvas, if you have the percentages set up there, it would adjust for you. So. Yeah, sure. I think we wanted to go. You want to just look at, for example, homework and to see what, into detail. So let's go to just lesson. Yeah, let's go to lesson 2, for example, because there wasn't too much assigned in lesson 1. So that's what it would look like here. So the due date is up at the top, and then everything that I've assigned here. These are tutorial videos, I believe, or maybe I thought that they should just do these for completion, and that's why there's just a check mark there and not a numerical grade. So let's see.
If they don't do it do you count it as a 0 and it does average in, or?
Actually, I don't think those for me have mattered so much in the past. I can see that they didn't do it. I can also see how much time
I was gonna say.
they spent on it. So I can see that when I click on it. So I haven't had too many issues though with them not completing it because they noted that they just have to at least click on it to get the credit. Now, how much time they've spent on it. But I love this feature because when students come in and say, I just don't get it. And I said, well, let's look at your tutorial videos and see, you know, what's going on there. I go, oh, it looks like you spent 4 seconds on all of them for this lesson. So yeah, I think we just need to spend some more time on that, you know? And then they're like, oh, okay. So
Tell James that we love him.
yes, yes. Okay.
So you can see there though that you can change the score. So
Right.
let's say you
love it.
decide, no, point
You
15
love 'em
seconds,
anyway.
I'm not giving you credit. I'm giving you 0 for that.
Exactly. I'm
Yeah.
giving
Or
you a
you can reset a screen and
0.15.
get another chance at it.
Yeah.
It brings you apples every day.
Yeah. And if you have those students, I've had to use this feature a couple of times. When I have a student that's kind of like a perfectionist and they say, oh, profe, I used my 3 attempts, but there was like 1 accent issue on 1, and I really want you to add the points in for that one for me. You know, I say, well, let me reset it for you, and then you can redo it, and then we'll take it from there. So I've had to use that feature a couple of times. So let's look at this over here too. So these are one of the ones with a percentage. And so I can see how many attempts, and then I can change the score just like the other. I can reset, and I can also go in and see exactly what the student did. So this will show me here what the mistakes were, right, where the problems might be. And so I can also, you know, I can say, oh my goodness, this was just, you know, 1 small spelling error somewhere, or this one wasn't so fair. So I can say, you know, if he had put the right verb here and maybe he, like everything here except for the la, right? Maybe I can go in and say, okay, he pretty much got the sentence correct and left an article out, so I want to give him partial credit. So I can go in and do that and adjust that right here. So it's up to you how much, you know, time you want to spend on it. I usually don't look into the homework activities in depth. The quizzes I'll go add partial credit to if there's time, but the homework activities, I tell them you have 3 attempts. So just take your time on them. And so, you know, and while we're talking about this and looking at this, there's a feature that I'll show you too when you're creating your course. Let's say a student, you know, thinks that one of them is being, you know, the system's being unfair and it marked me wrong and there's no reason why. We know really there is probably a little reason why, but they haven't discovered it yet. There's a feature where they can ask that you go in and look specifically at that activity. So when I log in, we can kind of see it here, this will show, and I can click on it and it'll take me to that student's work, right to the straight to that activity. And also it used to, I'm not sure if it does, maybe Vistas and Suena might be different this way. It used to take me right to the number even. Yeah, right there. So number 4, and the student can write a note and say, I really don't understand why I got this wrong. And you can write them back quickly and say, well, it turns out 2 of the words were misspelled, so I'll give you, you know, a little partial credit or something. You can do whatever you want with them. If you don't want them to contact you that way and get in touch with you that way, and you don't want to be bothered with that, and you want them to send you an email, you can turn that feature off. So that'll be up to you. I find it to be easier with when we do the yes, when we set up the courses, yes, we can do that.
If they say they need help, do we get an email like right away, or do we have to log in?
You have to log in.
You would log
And it
in,
puts you in your
right? I tell them as long as they send that to me before the due date, I'm okay with that. You know, because I know that they needed help, and so I'll go in and readjust it for them and send them a little note in there. So yeah, even if you look at it after the due date, you know that they got in touch with you before the assignment was due. So okay, let's go back to the grade book here. Make sure, yeah, Okay, so let's go through. We're looking at those. Did you guys want to go back and look more in depth? I think that was pretty much all that we could see for each individual activity. There were like the tutorials.
But you can
and
see what the
then,
actual activity is too by clicking on it.
Mhm. Oh yeah, definitely. Let's see. So if I
Yeah.
click on historias, right? I can look at, yeah, I can see what it looks like, and I'm going to actually go through the late work part in a second. If I feel as though, my students just deserve 100% on an activity, that I can have that option here, or I can go in and, grade all of it at the same time. So,
So the quick grade is just if they've done it.
yeah, and you can set it up for like a category and do the complete or not complete, or you could do it this way. Yeah. If you see like they made an attempt and I know that activity was more challenging than others, and if they made an attempt, I feel like that's okay and they all deserve that grade, then you can just click that.
If that based on, I know it's a system we've been using, like quick grade, if they complete, say, 3 questions out of 5.
So I think they have to attempt it to get the credit for it. So if they have,
What's the one I had was given as a percentage, what is the number of questions completed?
No, it's either going to be
It's 100 or
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think with some programs it would give 100 to just everyone. And so I think this
does
program
at least have to
knows
go
if
into
they didn't
it.
attempt it, they're not getting that 100%.
yeah, no, the
Which is good.
one that we had it would be say like if they did 4 out of 5, they get 80% with the quick grade.
Oh, uh-huh.
If like there's a question they skipped out of 5 questions.
Yeah. You might need to look into
Because you
that and
also have
see.
things that people do put something in for the first one
Right.
and think, oh, this is going to count as completed if she only graded that one.
It's not a feature we have now, but I think it's a great point. I'm going to bring it up to our
Yeah,
tech developers.
because I get students who
Yeah.
think, oh, I did all of these activities.
Right.
Why did I only get 20% on my homework? It's like, well, that's because you only wrote in like a letter. For the first
Exactly.
question of each activity.
So it reflects how much they actually did.
Yeah.
But they have to attempt every question
To get 100%.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so those are the scores here. And then roster. So this can really come into play at the beginning of the semester if you want to see, what students are here. I've had students just pop in here and I know that they're not my students. And so I send them an email while I can still see it here and say, I don't think that you're supposed to be enrolled in this class, And so I can go ahead and click on their name and drop their name off of there. Or I have a student who just really it's like I've tried this a million times. I don't get this too much, but I've tried to register, but something seems off, and I can go ahead and just add them on, for example.
Or if
so
you have one switching from your section to your section,
right.
You drop it, and then they can add it on.
And this is important to know. If I know if I have a student in like a 101 class and they're not, I don't catch it right away, for example. I look at the end of week 1 and I say, oh no, this student's been doing this homework, and we have the same homework across the board for 101, but they've been doing it for my class and not this other class. I can drop them, add them into the next class, and those grades will transfer. They won't disappear.
But they have to be assigned.
Yeah.
Activities have to be
yes,
assigned.
and ours are all the same, so that has been a good thing in that way.
I would still export.
I don't think that
Once
they
you've
can.
enrolled in a class, the instructor has to drop them.
Yeah.
They can enroll in your class the first time, but if they're in the wrong class,
they can't drop themselves.
No, you have to drop them out of the class.
Yes.
And then they will enroll in
Then
the
they
other
can-
one.
And then
Well, they don't want
them.
kids jumping around from class to class
Yeah.
and checking out different, oh, this
seems like a pain.
Well, hopefully they're not. I mean, it shouldn't happen very often.
No, it
They
doesn't.
don't always tell us when they switch to a different class.
No. I usually, at the end of the first week, I have in my planner, like, look at VHL and make sure that these are the right students
Well,
in the
they
class.
can't enroll in the other class until you drop them.
Yeah.
So someone has to communicate.
They can only add one course, right?
Yeah.
At a time, so
Yeah.
they get dropped in.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
they wouldn't be able to switch to another instructor without you.
Yeah. But that doesn't happen very often. I think, and that I think what comes into play there is when you go to create the course to just make it as specific as possible. So I add extra things in like Spanish 101 Vitali, CRN number, so that there's no mistake and they don't confuse it with another class. Exactly. Yes.
Do you hover over the grace periods?
Yes. Here we go.
So that's where you would go to add grace periods to students. So if you have students who've enrolled in your class, it'll have a little red exclamation point next to their name, and then you can go to add grace period. Do you want to just click on that?
Mm-hmm. Okay,
And it would
let's
list
see.
any students who need it, and you can see up there grace period's 500. See where it says that? So
Right over
how many
here.
are remaining? So
Mhm.
when you start to see that number go down too low, like if under 50, let me know, email me, and we can have them. I mean, we can do it instantly, add them, but we just don't do under that 2 weeks.
Yes.
So if you anticipate every single student is going to do a grace period, we need to add more numbers. If you think most students will be buying the package by the time you start assigning them, you might have fewer. So.
Bought it, but there's always so many to ask.
Yep. And especially financial aid,
Yeah.
trying to pull the money
Yeah.
together. So that's what that's there for.
Takes over a week.
Yeah.
A lot of issues.
Yeah, that's why that's there.
Even with 3 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you, we have limited codes that we can give out to students in need, but if you have a student who's clearly in need, cannot afford the book, and they're going to drop the class, please let me know, because we can give out a few codes a year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's just up to your discretion. If you say the student's in need, we'll take care of it.
Mhm.
I don't want to make it just like we're doing.
Oh, I mean,
Oh,
every
yeah.
single school has it. Students who are struggling to make it work, and we certainly don't want them not taking a language class.
You want to do what we used to do at one point, with whoever has students that need that freebie, send you their names and then you contact with them.
Yeah,
So it's not a bunch of
Yep,
people.
that's perfect. Yep, that's
So it all
perfect.
comes in one.
Yep, that's perfect.
Yeah. We actually, there's not too much left here. Maybe we'll just talk about
Yeah.
the late work and the
Late work
analytics,
and the
and
analytics.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the late work here, okay, so we are seeing some students who turned in some things that are late. Okay, and instead of having to go into each activity and accepting them, let's say that they have an excuse there. So I can go in and say, okay, I know that, Anaya, there was something unexpected that came up that was out of her control. And so she completed this activity late, or, oh, here we are back to James, of course. Okay. So Neil here, right? So let's say Neil, something came up that was very unexpected and it is excused. And so I can say, you know what, Neil, I understand. Yeah. So most of these were due around the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and accept those. So I don't have to click on every single activity. So this makes it very easy. Okay, and then it's divided up per lesson. Who's this? Brian.
Yeah, you beat James.
But he did it all. Look at that. He got like 95.
Yeah, he does the drill. Okay. All right. So Charlotte, I know you wanted to mention.
Just the analytics.
Yeah.
It's a new feature that, if you've used our stuff before, this is new. And it's really there to help give you a good overview of how students are doing in your class. So it'll give you at the very top here, recently, as in the last 2 weeks, what's the average score been? What's the cumulative score in the class? What's your average homework? How much have they spent all quarter or semester? And then you can see in here, when it's late, when it's missing, and then all of it's on time. So you can see that her course is done. 89% of your students' work was on time. It's pretty impressive. And then you can go in and you can see if there's a student who has like an alert, they'll put it in the top here. It'll be a student who has a low score and it wants you to take a look at what they have there. You can see what they're missing. You can organize this. So if you wanted to look at the number of late assignments, you could do that. If you wanted to look at score trends, you can organize it that way. So you can organize this list of students in a way that makes the most sense for you.
So these are score trends. So Bella started out and is now has lost 27% of her grade.
Yes. So in the last 2 weeks, her score has gone down 27%. So then you might want to know what's going on with her stuff, right? So I'm going to have a look and see, what's going on. She's on time. She didn't do any practice quizzes. She's, so you can kind of look at that. And you can look then also at the cumulative and compare it. Your class is only 5 weeks long, so it's probably not a big change there. And then you can also look at the progress and look at the line of the students. So here you can see in general how the class is doing. The circle around the activities indicate how, like smaller circles means the activity took less time, bigger circles mean they take longer to do. And you can also see particular students. You can set up alerts too, by the way, so that if you wanted to know students, and I think you might set this up when you set up your course, otherwise I think it's automatically 75. If anybody scores under a 75, that it will alert you that that student is struggling. So you're looking at the section average here, but I can also look at a particular student. So up here in the top, it has the students we're concerned about. Sarah Vitale doesn't do any work. That's her sample. But so now I can see how he compares to the other. Where did the line go? It was just there. There we go. So the blue line is the student. You can see here, there's a question, right? What went wrong? But this is a different one. This is Charles. You can laugh at Charles. So, but it gives you a very quick way to look at the trends. And then you can actually look at specifically.
That was a stock market in 2008.
Right. Well, that did drop to 0, though, so he didn't turn something up.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can see there that here he spent 0. He spent 12 minutes on it.
Poor guy.
Oh, no, that was the section. Sorry, he spent no time on it. Anyway, it is a way for you to drill down on activities that students are doing. You can look at strands. You can look at due dates. You can look at the full view. So this is a feature we've added to try to make it better for you to report data if you need to identify students who are struggling or students who are having success. And if you guys are big on data and exporting, you can also create reports in the customized report section. If you need to do like, how did students do on this assessment? You want to see the data from every section, you can export that by creating a new report. And then it will let you choose the categories and restrictions that you want. Okay, course setup.
Course setup. Do you all want to set up? Do you want
to walk through it real quick? Just show them how.
I need to just show you here. Would that work for you?
The steps to take?
Well, I already set mine up, but there's some options I was getting where I'm like,
let her walk through it once, and then we can get it online and we can help you guys.
And if I've already set it up, I can change.
Yeah, then we can just, you can edit it, change anything.
Absolutely. Okay, so first we want to add the course, then we want to add the section course. So if I go in here, and like I said, I make all of this very specific so that my students know that it is my course and so they don't get it confused and jump into another course. So if I'm just naming a course here, we'll do another. Yes, and we're going to set up the dates for it so that it'll show up and then it can disappear whenever you want it to. All right, so let's do the tally. We'll do fall 2019. I put the CRN number. I'll put everything up there. So just in case, okay? And then I can copy my date settings. I haven't done this too much before. I usually just go with default, yeah.
But your settings come, I think, so that's useful if you don't want to redo your settings.
Right, if you've taught it before, you can copy all your settings from your previous class by clicking. So she clicked on SN 104. It would just copy all her settings.
Yeah.
So once you have the magic formula of how you want your class, every semester you just copy that.
Let's go over. Okay, so we'll do our start date. Let's say today, say our end date. That looks like a lovely end date. And then we move on here to next. So those are,
Can I ask about that date certain thing? If you are copying the last semester's course and you choose that copy the settings, does it put last year's dates in everything?
You can use the assignment wizard to assign all the same things. It won't be all the same dates because obviously you're reading on different days, but it will organize it for you and copy what you assigned last time.
mm-hmm.
The dates
Doesn't have to
are
go in and fix
adjusted,
the
or
dates.
I have to manage them
They
one by one.
adjust. You can do you can do both.
So
Mm-hmm.
to put in some dates that are current, and I can just see if I like those dates?
And then you,
And then you can unput
modify.
dates or add. And then, then once it's been laid out, you might not want to move some assignments around.
right. So my content settings, so if I want something transferred from my last course over to this course, I would go ahead and do that. And then lessons, I usually just click all of it here, just in case I find something from another lesson and want to throw it in. I don't usually include just what we're focusing on in that class. I include everything, so I have a lot of choices here. Okay. And then are you all using the super site or super site plus? Okay, so that is important to check off. And if you don't check that off right in the beginning, it will alert you and say something seems off here. So that, and then WebSam also? No WebSam?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right, so we'll do super site plus.
I mean, I can double check.
Isn't that in the super site class?
It's like a lab.
It's a separate.
It's an add-on. Let me just look at your code.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was incorporated into the.
I mean, there are extra activities with the
There are.
WebSam. Let me just see what we got for you guys.
I don't think.
No, we just did Super Site Plus.
Super site plus, okay.
So it adds a couple of activity options.
There we go.
But don't forget, you still have all the
There's
resources.
a ton of stuff.
There's
Yeah,
so
there
much
really
to do.
is. Yeah,
You would be hard pressed to get all that in.
yeah,
Sure. No.
yeah. I would say maybe for something like an online course, like when you
Or
really
if you're gonna
need
do
all
this for
those
2
extra
semesters, If you're
activities.
gonna stretch it out for 2 semesters, you might want to.
Exactly.
Or you're doing 5 credit hours.
Right. We mentioned this earlier, the subtitles, so you can pick and choose here. And you can see what that looks like too, depending on what you choose, Spanish or Spanish and English.
Yeah.
You can put some Spanish in there.
It's
And
less authentic.
if as you're going through by the mid-semester, you want to remove that, you can go in and edit this and change it. So if you want to start it with Spanish and then take them away later, you can do that.
Right.
Yeah, you can just start with that.
Spanish.
Yeah. And I think it's some people I've talked to, some instructors at different universities have told me that they do that. They change that up depending on the level. So for 101, some of them want to include English, and then they go to 102 and maybe not, you know.
Customize it based on the video as well.
I don't think, yeah.
No, you can't do it.
There might be certain videos that
But
are
you can
already-
download the transcript and the resources. So if there's a video that's really difficult, those resources, you can download that and hand it out or make it accessible to students.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right, some are going to be more complicated than others. So that's why those transcripts are there.
Right. So then the transcript, same idea here. Whatever you prefer, you can set up for them. We talked a little bit about this too, the technical support. So again, if you want them to send you an email, you can turn this off. I do allow this, and that's kind of what we saw in the beginning with my course. You would log in and you would see that one student needs help, or, you know, so you can turn both of these on or both of these off, whatever you prefer. And then the chat. So this is up to you also. I have it, I think I had it turned on as only in partner chat
You see the little
activities
chat thing on the right hand
over
side?
here.
You can manually turn it off, so you're not
Mhm.
available to
Right.
students.
Yeah, I prefer not, when I go in to look at their VHL, I don't want them to know that I'm in there. It's like,
And you don't want them
hi.
asking you.
Right.
Quick.
So I don't have the always available on.
But if you're
right.
doing office hours on an online class or a snow day,
Sure. Mm-hmm. And then the estimated times, that's what we saw in the assignment calendar, so they can see. If you don't want them to see that, then you can turn that off too.
You get the estimated times, they don't necessarily, so whatever, that's something that you can give to them or.
Right, so if you
Or
turn that off, you'll still see it.
that they won't. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so these are my categories. So these are the ones I had. I think each one was worth 25%. Reading selections, practice quizzes.
So what do you put the percentages here? Is that?
That's what we're going to look at right here.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I have my default settings. And then maybe I would want to just to show.
Basic is going to be
Yeah, let's
always
show
homework.
here. So this is what it would look like. So you would add your categories up here, and every time you add a category, it's going to ask you for more information. So if you wanted to do quizzes here, right, and you want them to be counted for 25%, let's say, right? If you want to do credit, no credit, so like those extra activities you would assign, maybe no credit, credit, no credit. If you want it for a grade here, number of lowest grades dropped, maybe you use your Learning Manager, your LMS for that. We dropped the lowest quiz, I think, in the face-to-face classes, but I don't do it through here necessarily. That's up to you. How many attempts they get, so for a quiz, I don't know, I would put just one for that, but that would be up to you. This, I think, varies from instructor to instructor. You know, if they don't put a capital letter, you know, it depends on, you know, whether that's important to you or not. I know for some people it is, for others not so much here. So the strictness, bless you. And then if you want to give them feedback, so if they're struggling with something and you want, you know, the system to kind of highlight, so we can see the details here. So for a fill in the blank, for example, if you want the system to highlight exactly kind of where the mistake is or what they're struggling with.
In blue squiggly line.
Yeah, like kind of look at this
area.
again. Yeah, then you could do that for them. Yeah, I usually have it turned on.
So it doesn't give the answer, it just gives them a kind of, like this area,
Right.
get something wrong.
Let's see. So like late work here. So what counts, what doesn't count. So if you don't, you know, care that much that they're turning it in maybe a day late, and you don't want to have to deal with that, you can do the no penalty. I usually do the 100. So if it's late, they don't get credit. And then later on, if they say, oh, I have an excuse, I just go back into the grade book and click accept, right? So I can do all of that at the same time there. So that would be up to you. And then I would go in and add all these categories. I want it to equal up to 100. So I already had homework here, but I can go in and edit that if I need to. So, you know, if I wanted that to be, you know, another 25 or whatever. So if we have the other one, let's just make this 75 so we can.
And so here you can go back into and edit.
Oh, yeah.
That you wanted to change, you know, how many attempts it can have. You can always go back in the grade book. It's important to know that it's retroactive. So if you do it mid-semester and you're suddenly changing the penalty for late work from 50% to 100%, it will go back and retroactively make it. So the grade book is for the whole grade book.
Yes.
It's important to know that
too.
when you make changes.
That is, I haven't done that before, thank God. Okay. Okay. So let's see.
Well, that's the only thing they really do know.
They watch their grade.
Yeah. So in the end, this basically tells you how you've set all of this up. So this is a breakdown of what you've done and what options you've chosen. And I know when some courses are coordinated, you know, and the coordinator wants all the instructors to be on the same page, they would send this out to everyone and say, make sure that, you know, yours looks like mine here. This is what we're going by. And you can, you know, look at, get the PDF from right here. And then it's going to ask me if I want to create another section.
Or
so
a
I
section.
can decide. Right, this is my first. You're right. We're on the first one here. Jumping the gun.
And a section.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you don't have a section within the course, it won't work.
Yes. So then we have, or adding a section here. So again, maybe it's repetitive, but I just make mine as detailed as possible, just so they know. Yeah, so I might even put the same thing.
Additional information as well.
Or maybe doing more than one section. So you can create all the sections under the same course.
Yeah.
I would say if they meet on the same day. If they don't have.
Yeah, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So just Okay, allow new students to enroll. We want that going on. Assignment availability.
Oh,
Yes, this is a new feature. Okay. So here you have the options. If you don't want your students to see all the assignments that are due for the whole semester, you want some of them, to release on a certain date, then you have that option here. So let's see. This is a new feature. So other. So this, I guess you would choose the days here, like 29 days out.
Yeah.
It'll show certain assignments. Okay.
On the calendar shows up.
that they can see what they have to do.
Yeah. Would anyone use that feature, or it's up to you?
For us, I think we've all seen students who try to do 2 weeks of work today.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would limit it, but it's interesting.
But we can put
It's an interesting functionality. Yeah.
a time.
Or maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It was a highly requested feature to have because they didn't want students working too far ahead and getting confused.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they would
get a
limit
bad
it.
grade and it's like, well, we haven't even seen that.
Mhm.
But you gotta balance that against
Yeah.
them knowing what they've got coming.
Right.
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we can give them
So,
And if you're developing the course as you go, obviously, then that's not a problem at all. But if you loaded it all in ahead of time, then
mhm.
Right, yeah, when you're counting one
Let's
course
see.
to another, basically puts everything in already, so then you're gonna have your entire
they can see
semester.
everything.
Yeah.
All right. And then you're just choosing the days your section meets. So that's where things will pop up on your assignment calendar on those days. And then you can add, this is also a new feature, I think, right? Adding co-instructors.
No, it's
and
been there, it's just in a
TAs.
different location.
It's in a
easier to do
that's
it
what
now.
it is. I had it under a new.
So
Yeah.
if you had several sections, but you had a
Yeah.
TA, you could add a TA.
Yeah, I don't remember it being here.
Or co-instructor. So here's something to think about. I know that you guys are all creating your individual courses, but some organizations will have a shell course that everybody's a co-instructor on, because then they can copy that from
It's easier to show.
person to person. And it's just basically we agree to all these same grading standards, and we're going to cover these
Take
topics.
the shell, it won't let me then customize.
You can customize it once you copy it, but it just is like saying, here's the framework we would like you to follow.
Mhm.
We want a framework, and even if we have one that has the assignments that mostly we assign, you can just have it, and then you copy and paste from the beginning, and you don't have to do each thing individually. It takes time to do each individual thing.
It does.
I mean, you can just erase what you don't like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you copy that, then you can do it. If you are a
I'm always
co-instructor, you
like,
can't.
I like to do that. I like to do that.
Before you did the
We
whole
should have done
semester.
that with Canvas as well.
Mhm.
Well, if everybody's doing the same, recreating
Canvas is the same thing. If you create a show,
Yeah.
you can just dump whatever you don't like. It's easy.
And that's
Is there more, or can we start working?
And that's great for, well, I was just going to show you once you create the course and section here, and we looked at this just briefly before, this is where you would go in and edit the course itself, and this is where you would go in assignment wizard, so I think that comes to like the
If you're
course, the
copying course,
copying,
you'd use that.
right? Just edits to what we put with this section. You can delete the section. You can, these are the instructions for students we already looked at. And when you want to go see what the students see, when they log in, if you want to see that, you would create a sample student and you can go in and see exactly what they're viewing. So,
I could see that one.
yes.
Okay, so can we just, whoever wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Log in and we'll be available to help.
I really need a lot of help.
Okay.
Because you have my wrong email address
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
and.
We can fix that.
I need help with something.
Okay.
And I think I enroll as a student.
Oh, no.
Okay. Oh, boy. It looks like a look. Log in here. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Wagner, A-R.
Sydney and I had a book file, and then Sydney for a different book.
Like a different one with these shadow. Okay. So we need to set up.
So I should set up from the beginning. Right?
So yeah, let's log into your DHL account. See what textbook. Okay, so
Everything's new. That was it.
oh, that's okay. That's yeah.
But I had created one. That profile
You,
start over or?
you don't have to. So I have two different ones. So I teach online for and I do. I log in with that email address
Yeah, that's
for the other thing. I like to keep them separate, but I think people should put them together.
A simple little, real fast question.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
then I'll go back there. This is for a different course.
Okay.
That I have to do. Which one is the most recently listed one? I want to copy your estimate, but I don't want to read your notes.
I think it should show us more information. That's how you just
Well, that's not, no, that's not anything, but these next ones are from mine, so I think that's correct.
It should be on the top.
Well, so if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. What do you think?
Goodness.
Oh, no, now it went black. What happened?
Well, the mouse is plugged in.
Well, the whole page is
Says-
went black.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's rebooted.
I
Oh,
think so too.
it says, everybody's just gonna do this, you know,
It's gonna
it's gonna be
update.
on for 5 minutes, and it's gonna reboot because they updated, and it was a little message came up, and just, this will reboot in 5 minutes. I shouldn't have even started anything. That's what happened.
No, you
Guys, just.
Lo pensé, pero no lo
So
hice.
you're not blindsided? You
Oye,
just
sí,
have
soy
to
yo.
for 5 minutes, it's gonna reboot, okay, I said, it's not updated.
Corazón, ¿quieres una mitad de la galleta?
Está rica la de.
Ah, sí, no tengo.
No, la de chocolate está bien. Digo, bueno, no, lo más que puedo comer.
Es que como no tienen nada de proteína. Tengo mucha hambre.
La verdad que sí necesita.
Well, it's actually,
Necesita
but she,
engordar
and she
un
was,
poquito más.
I don't know, she's been away all summer, but she's the one that, you know, knows about computers and stuff. So if it updates,
Did yours also reboot already?
did you get a message that it will reboot?
What do you suppose?
Did you get a little message?
Maybe just
I
one.
don't use Mac.
Yeah.
Now I use Mac.
If you use your Longwood ID.
I did. And my longer password. That was fine on my laptop. It will take it.
That's what we use that for.
No, I won't have it.
So, like,
I've checked it in.
Yeah, DHL sends it.
And it works fine on this.
Yeah, you just put it in. So where's your, I don't know, your email, you're trying to browse.
Oh,
And then it'll pull up.
I don't care.
Yeah.
What do I care?
No, the problem is the Suena. The problem is the map. Won't let me on.
Yeah.
Well,
It won't take my password.
write down the number that either or. This is
So
9,
DHL sent up with that.
10, so that's gonna be 11, and tell me, 11 will copy it, and log in with the Longwood. I do, but now it's.
Be a temporary password.
All right, so if I want to start a new one, then I.
Then you create it. Yeah, you want to keep it separate.
Yeah,
And your time is already in. Good. Okay. Yeah. And then you'll click on the book. Yes. Yes. There could be several books there that yeah, it looks like you have your course and your section set up. I would do that for clarity, right? Because, yeah.
Either one.
I've had them before, but
But these are super slow.
I never had one
I
that
think
worked
it's going to be two different links.
Yeah, I like them.
Yeah, and I would put the one link in that, like, so on Canvas, you have two different.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would put the link here. Instructions for students. So I would put that link in for that class. Exactly, and copy the other one for the other class. Exactly. There you go.
So you guys really don't have to.
Yes, I would need time to class. That would probably be helpful too.
But I'm gonna order the Super Fat Plus, only because I thought it included most of the stuff. Yeah, but.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of them either. I don't have one.
Separate each lesson, there's way more things.
The only thing it doesn't.
I'm a keyboard user.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
In
you're
the back,
right. But so many other things.
I think you did look through it.
And it may only let you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that's oh,
Yeah, so I had to switch mine. Like
I can have my.
you know what I'm saying? I don't need to put spaces.
Okay. Yeah, 3 things.
Well, that's up to you. There you go.
Do, well, what, because of the,
Okay. Now, some reason scroll down.
right, so the difference,
Oh, boy. And then we started create an account.
you want to have more cats. Yeah.
And then your school. Yeah. So you could even put in search right after you put that. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I would just leave them all unless you're gonna.
And there's your Suena. That's it.
These are my cohorts.
That's them.
So then it tells you other instructors from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at the bottom, I would hit stop. Actually, go up here. You want it. You want it.
Yeah, it's kind of.
We've already clicked on it. We should just set that. We don't want to enroll under. Go down.
Okay, and you can add.
Skip this step. We already clicked when they know. Okay, we need a code. Just show. We need to have a chart about it.
Because I don't have a book.
You need to get a textbook too. Okay. So,
Oh, that's true.
Right? Because someone.
Yeah,
didn't order a
nobody
book for the other
knew
guy.
about you when we were ordering the books way back in the day.
Right, but you didn't order one for the other guy, so I would get his.
Oh, he probably has his, he probably took it.
He stole my book.
Would Lisa
Take
have,
a brand.
would Lisa have an extra?
We'll get a code for you from Charlotte.
Yeah, I do need a textbook. So,
You do need a textbook.
so if I can get a textbook from Charlotte as well.
If you didn't have a textbook?
No, I don't have one
Okay.
because the other person was supposed to teach it.
I can lend you mine for now, but I'll send him one. Yeah.
Now, I knew it.
I can give you mine for now,
Make sure
but
that
that
that's
one's
these that instruct.
okay, because I don't need it right now.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah,
doesn't have
I
anything.
but I'm
It
gonna
doesn't have
use
anything.
one.
I can send you the code.
This is what I
Okay.
even asked.
Oh, you would,
Yeah. I had the same question.
I was gonna say, you should probably have that.
I have you in there. Okay,
That's
so-
why I made a different profile just in case.
That's good.
You know,
Like,
from this one. I know I can, but I don't want to. Yeah, so I put it on the side and I just made it.
Okay, so.
yes, you're good. And then you'll- and then bring-
Right now, it's all right.
You can do this, yeah. Yeah. All counting, like,
But,
one and
so,
all, so you
I
can
did,
have
I
first
did everything
grade.
that I wanted
You
because
want
I wanted
everything
to get something, and we never had it ready, I really.
I offered it actually. Is it 17?
Not just that.
Yeah.
I mean, the email.
Yeah.
Not just
Not so much. That would be up to you, like, I guess, picking and choosing which ones are easier than others.
So then,
And in the end, I think it's in the whole fair.
so the numbered ones that you're talking about?
Yes, the numbered ones for sure are not in the text.
How do I do that?
The web sound.
Yes.
Yeah, I got that. So you should have an email, let me know.
Oh, yeah. So go to your,
It still has the original title.
Oh, wait. Yeah, that's not.
That's the section.
is this the student?
That's
Yeah.
just.
Click on that.
I would focus on that. So I like what
Define activity,
yeah,
yes, report, like that, it need to be assigned and.
I
Yes.
It looks like you have a course section.
Okay, so I just want to rename that section.
So you just
And, yes,
yeah, and then if you want to delete that other course, you don't.
three. Okay. This is officially now the student. So they see assignments, but some of them also prefer to look at it on the calendar.
Do you get the email?
No, because I don't know how to open another browser in a Mac.
The Mac.
I use since DOS. I use PCs. I have no idea. What to do. Oh,
I mean Safari. Oh, just
Can I open
right
like
click on
another-
it. I think you can right click on it. On
That's
Safari,
actually
this
already-
one.
You want to assign things?
It didn't do anything. I tried doing that. Because I'm at this.
You can look at activities, but I actually just go to, like, start assigning and click on the activity.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
I had a Mac. I forgot.
Yeah.
It's so different.
It's nice to have like.
Click on
I
each
just
one
know
and
how to
then
put
check it out.
15
before you
things on
assign it.
on a Windows machine. On this thing, I have no idea.
Yes,
All right.
yes, right up there. And again, if you don't, if you want to add something to the instructions, you think that's
Wait, so the students need to be able to enroll themselves?
They will enroll, yep.
yeah.
So I need to change that. So students cannot enroll in this.
Yes, you need to choose it.
But
Just
anyways,
check.
you guys, is there a fast way to get the email?
You do not have that. Okay.
Is there a fast way to get the email?
So Longwood.
It used to be like email, the stuff was in the front page. The front page is full of junk and advertisements for the college, right? I mean, it used to be so simple.
Yeah, I have a different bookmark.
When your courses from.
I know, I go for every little line too.
Is the last one the most recent one?
I want to.
So these are, yeah, this is just a reference.
Right. But when I go over here and I want to add a copy from.
Oh, it's so much better. It's that's what it is. Now it's like one big ass thing.
That's all right.
Thank you. So this is the way to come into this thing now. No wonder I ran away. I put a.
Oh, no, you did. Make it,
Oh, you can put this one. I'll put web. Oh, okay. Great. I would have thought of that.
I'm gonna,
If I were you, I would just take one category, 100%.
I mean, we can go back to that.
And you can always go back to it.
Go back to the.
100, you can go back in.
There we go. Now, show for 22. And now, well, then you can look at it.
Now you go to the name. And then that just tells you what you're
Okay, so now we go back.
And now you want to go to section. Before you start looking at the
So
design,
now,
check it
it
out.
looks like you actually.
I already have one.
For these things.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's gonna be.
This, alright, they're supposed to have the Spanish keyboards in here.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not US International.
Take out
It's already
space.
done. Never mind, I'm sorry.
I was like, is that something I was?
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. It's just me. I don't want to say anything about that now.
Right, so when we determine which
You
level
want that, yeah.
is for money.
You want all these options, so go back and modify this, but they'll all show.
Okay, workbook and
So,
lab.
what if this is something for?
So if it has
And there you
mouse
have it,
next
now
to
you can start playing everything.
and everything else
So, is this the one that you just? Okay, so the add section.
I do like the feeling on that other.
Let's add one. We have that.
Because we don't have access.
Well, okay, right. So you set it up, you had like what is it?
No, so you're saying
That's
just
just-
Did you figure out how to take them out?
Yeah.
whoa, 9 hours.
Charlotte, I think I
Yeah.
got you.
What I am having
Did you
is not that it's
Yeah.
I know, I didn't find it.
This is the one that you did. Okay, so that's the one, okay, so then you can now look in here, click on it, even if you have that.
Yeah.
Click straight on it.
Okay, so I'm gonna forward it. Because sometimes it goes plus one.
There it is, and now you can start playing with all of this.
I get a copy of this also.
It didn't bother me, because I know that.
Well, sometimes it bounces because it's coming from, you know, the large company, but I just sent it to you.
If you want to just look and see what's already in the start time, I would go to calendar, start time, and you can click on, figure out which ones that you want to sign, exact. Yeah.
Well, but it's telling me how to log in. So why don't you just go to vhlcentral.com? Okay, so,
You love it, right? For example.
oh, so you already have
Okay,
it,
here.
I was ready.
but you're not as a student, right? You set up your instructor.
So,
So, why don't you
Click here.
go to
The
VHL?
easiest thing ever.
It's already just an access.
And it shows up on your calendar.
And that would be why it's blocking. Let me show.
And you can see and of course, you can figure out if you want instructor graded, all that.
Yeah, you started as a
Figure
student.
out
Okay, so I can fix that.
grading method. And then you would apply. Oh, yeah.
I'm glad you have the power, so you
I try.
can straighten me out.
But it's nice to do these workshops. So.
That's why I like to set things up, because better to solve all your simple problems. and then,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
There'll be
Okay, so
plenty
let's
of other
make
ones.
sure that I have your email right.
And that's just for that category.
Sanchez, SANCHEZN, at Longwood.
Oh, yeah.
Longwood.edu.
That's the problem.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
That's the problem.
That's it.
Anyway.
And then it'll show up on your
Now
calendar,
try
and
it.
then, you know, as far as the estimated time.
Yeah, I didn't even
I
think
should have
about
thought about
it. I didn't even
that.
think about that.
I didn't even think about it.
So, do I,
If you wait
Get
your
out of it.
email box for 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, yes. Yeah, go into your email box. It has been sent.
There you go. I got it. Okay, now, so my account works or?
So now, yes,
Did you fix
so
it?
I took the account out of that little student account now, so it's just, log out of it. And now log in with your email. And just the password.
You gave me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, has to take your student account and give it a dummy email. You don't have one account.
Yeah, there was. But it was just, I was trying to
I don't think that they've had that feature. No, the drag and drop.
I mean, I've been with somebody for 3 years, so not in the last few years. I think we've had that. Spanish grammar.
yeah, it was a list.
Yeah, so it may have been something that hasn't been in.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
They continuously take constructive feedback and make adjustments, so something I can tell them. No. Yeah. So when you go into their student, they have the same view under activities, and they can say,
Okay, so it's all short term. So we'll rest for that. Short time.
Yeah.
We got it.
yeah, and that way they can.
Yeah.
They'll get a grade.
Okay, so
We'll see their.
that's it. So I discussed it over here. There you go. Short time.
Yes, they have.
So I know we talked about assigning activities. Does everyone know how to unassign an activity or change the date? Okay, I'll show you that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I'll show you that here. There's only 2 to click on as far as the calendar. There's start assigning, where you would assign, and then the assignment calendar shows what you've already assigned. So if you've already assigned something and you no longer want it there, or you want to change the date, for example, let me actually go back to my students and my actual course that's already. So there, I'm back at my assignment calendar, and you see now all of a sudden these are clickable, right? So I can go into one of them. Let me go back in July here, and I can say, okay, this homework here, I don't want this activity assigned anymore, okay? I'm going to keep the check here. I need to undo all of these. Only the ones I check are the ones that I'm trying to reassign or unassign. Does that make sense? So we have to get rid of, I don't want to unassign all of these, so I need to uncheck these. That's these I don't want to mess with. So, and I guess I don't need to do all of that. So you would check the one, right, that you want to get rid of or reassign, and then you would just unassign or change the date with reassign. That's how you would undo it.